So funny story, I gave Vince the idea for the do-rag, but I did not tell him he could use it.
How you doing?
Yeah. What's good in the hood?
Just holding it down, trying to take care of business.
Keep it up.
I'm do-rags and arm drags. You can call me DNA for short. And today I'm going to be going over some hot takes. Whether those hot takes are spicy, whether they're mild, it doesn't matter. I'm going to be giving my opinion and rating them 1 to 5 Vince's do-rags. First hot take. Vince never saw Bret as the guy that could carry the company. I don't even think that's remotely spicy, to be honest. Just look at some of the characters that Vince either created or was a part of. You got Hulk Hogan, you got the Ultimate Warrior. Hell, you want to go people like Big John Studd. Vince has always been a big guy, or if you're not big, he's more of like, you have to have some type of like abrasiveness to your character. Take Shawn Michaels, for instance. Shawn Michaels was a small guy like Bret Hart, but the thing that Shawn Michaels had was he was provocative. We all know some of Vince's favorite hobbies, I would say, are provocative. Bret is one of the most intelligent in-ring workers I've ever seen in my life. I actually wish, I'm only 32. Sometimes I wish I was old enough to see his working live. I guess Father Time doesn't work out like that. He just didn't have what you would call, like I said, provocative. If you take his most heel run in the late 90s with the New Heart Foundation, even that stuff wasn't too crazy. Sure, it may have played on cultural differences or regional differences, him being from Canada and his character was supposed to hate the US. That stuff had already been done. Vince likes people who are loud. You take John Cena, for example, right? John Cena in 2003, 2004, the rapper gimmick, he was saying stuff about nuts, balls, it's provocative. Vince likes provocative. What he likes more than anything is big, strong, meaty men. I don't think necessarily wrestling just gets that done for him. Even Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle, this is crazy because Kurt Angle wasn't ever really the guy. He's my favorite of all time, by the way, but he wasn't ever the guy. But Kurt Angle, they did things with Kurt Angle like push him to be edgy. The stuff with Booker T and his wife, if you think about the stuff with Shawn Michaels and him mocking Shawn Michaels doing the sexy Kurt stuff. It's all different things that kind of rely on being provocative.
I don't even know what that means.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
No, it's not. It
gets the people going.
Do I think that Vince ever saw Bret Hart as the guy to run the company, the face that runs the place? No. Because of Bret's success, I feel like he was an integral part of the new generation and a small part of the Attitude Era, and he was the face of the company for a while. I think even though you can argue that he was the face of the company during a very weak period, I'll rate this one 1.5 do-rag Vinces out of 5. While Bret was great, I think he's one of the biggest crybabies in wrestling history. Okay, so I don't understand what those two things have to do with each other, because you can say he was great. If you're gonna give a hot take, give something where it kind of parallels, like, oh, while I think he was great, he wasn't one of the best technically sound wrestlers. If you're comparing him to like a Kurt Angle, or you're comparing him to somebody who is multifaceted like an AJ Styles. Now, let's be clear before the comments attack me, I don't believe what I just said. I'll just give you example. Two things can be true. He can be great and he can be a crybaby. Zero do-rag Vinces out of 5. Kurt Angle tainted his legacy by spending so long in TNA. First of all, if Kurt Angle didn't spend so long in TNA, we would have never got the Perk Angle. You're wrong about that one. And second of all, I think leaving a company and being successful outside the company is something to be applauded. We applaud Cody Rhodes for leaving the WWE after feeling underappreciated and undervalued and going to AEW, making a name for himself there, going to New Japan, making a name for himself there. We give him so much credit for that. Why would we not give Kurt Angle the same credit? And Kurt Angle, by the way, put on some of the craziest, most insane moments and matches in TNA history. So I don't understand how that's a tainted thing. I can see if opposite way around, where you say like, oh, Edge went to AEW and tainted his legacy. Edge's run in AEW, he's underperforming, but also he's at an older age, so I get why he's underperforming. That kind of like ideology kind of, to me, doesn't make sense, because like we look at somebody like Christian Cage, who went over to TNA and made a name for himself and then came to WWE, became a world champion, but at the same time, he didn't have the same career that he had in TNA, but still you went to another company and performed. Kurt Angle went to TNA and performed, especially like if you look at it from like a standpoint of this man was also dealing with drug addiction. He was also dealing with injuries at that time too, and to be able to perform and do the things he did over there, especially with a company who at the time was known for having wishy-washy management. I'll give that 2 do-rag Vinces out of 5. Not everyone needs to be good at promos or even say anything at all. Goldberg should have never spoken a word other than "you're next."
Guess what, son? You're next.
All right. I will agree Goldberg should have never said a single word because he was not a good promo. Yeah, not everyone has to be good at a promo. You look at Brock, we never really needed to hear Brock say words. He had a wise man. He had a wise man.
He had a wise man.
This is crazy. You must be stupid, huh?
Oh, I'm sorry. He didn't have a wise man. That was Roman. My bad. My bad, internet community. He had a Paul Heyman. Maybe Goldberg would have been someone who would have done well with having a Paul Heyman. Hell, Goldberg was so bad on the mic, he could have had a Jimmy Hart and he would have been fine. Yeah, I agree with that. Not everyone needs that, but I think that if you're going to be over, you need that. A big part of Cena was that Cena can talk, even when we didn't like his promo style from like the mid 2000s because we thought, you know, the whole Super Cena thing. It was still important that your best have mic skills. What do you think held Bret Hart back? Bret Hart was an incredible performer, but the mic skills were the thing that people always used as his flaw. Who are the greatest of all time? Shawn Michaels. Crazy in-ring. Wow. Crazy, amazing in-ring performer, but he also had mic skills. Charisma on top of charisma. He oozed machismo. We look at somebody, I just said machismo. We look at Macho Man Randy Savage, someone who could perform in the ring, also had the mic skills to back it up. If you look at somebody who could perform in the ring like Ultimo Dragon, but didn't have mic skills, we don't put him at the top of the list. But if we talk about in-ring performers, people love him. People like Dean Malenko, who couldn't talk a lick in the ring, but could perform in the ring with the best of them. What separates Chris Jericho from a Chris Sabin? Mic skills. To me, mic skills rule the world. When I was growing up, I loved technical wrestlers. I still love technical wrestling, but I got into wrestling because it was story-based. I got into wrestling because I want to hear superstars explain their pain. It's cool telling the story inside the ring. That's a big part of it. That has to be like kind of like the final boss of it all.
Now go home and smoke some more
The end game has to be in the ring, but like, what builds a story? Did Hulk Hogan need to know how to wrestle to be Hulk Hogan? No, he had to be a little racist. I will agree with you, but I will say that that's not that much of a hot take. I'll rate that 1 do-rag Vince out of 5. Okay. Chris Jericho is overrated as a performer.
Brother, this guy stinks!
As much as I don't like this, I won't say recent, I'll say more honest version of Chris Jericho. I think when people get older in age, they kind of start to reveal who they are more, especially with the internet, where seeing more and more of a person instead of a character. Chris Jericho being overrated as a performer is crazy. Chris Jericho could take a dog taking a and make a great match out of it. Vince could tell Jericho, you know what? I want you to go in the middle of the ring and I just want you to for 20 minutes. And Chris Jericho could make that the most entertaining for 20 minutes straight. I know it's just an opinion, and all my opinions aren't factual. Everything I'm saying right now can be refuted, and somebody can say, this guy's 80, he doesn't know anything about wrestling. But how could you say Chris Jericho is an overrated wrestler? And I'll go back to Bret Hart. By the way, he is a crybaby. One of my favorites all the time, but he is a crybaby. Bret Hart is an amazing in-ring wrestler, but what's missing is mic work. If somebody can be almost as good as Bret Hart in the ring, I'm not saying he's better or as great, but almost as good, but blow him out the water on the mic, how could you not consider him rated as respectfully as possible? Your hot take, sir, I'm giving that 4 Vince's do-rags out of 5. That's just crazy. Paul Heyman is more of a creative genius than Vince McMahon. I gotta agree with you. No, wait, I don't know.
No. Well,
I don't know, that's hard. One of my favorite runs, just like anybody else with common sense, is the SmackDown 6 run, that 02-03 SmackDown run. It was one of the best runs. I think it was hard for Vince to kind of create something as good as that, where mostly the wrestling was just the focus as compared to Raw, where it was weird Katie Vick storylines, Triple H holding the title, poop jokes. Paul Heyman's mind is one of the best minds in the world. I don't think Vince McMahon does what Paul Heyman does with the bloodline, even close or remotely to, especially because the man was like 70 and senile. It's hard to refute that. Now, also, he has some, I mean, who wants Big Show as the world champion? More than once, really. Shout out to Big Show, though. I don't like Vince. I don't respect Vince, but growing up as a fan, if I'm a fan of WWE, I have to say I respect most of his work in WWE. I'll rate that a 3 Vince's do-rags out of 5. People's opinions of CM Punk is greatly influenced by what company he is with more than his personality and actions. Okay, that is hard to agree with because CM Punk was somebody who was so over with the fans and he had a cult-like following prior to leaving WWE. In Ring of Honor, he was looked at as like one of their saviors. In WWE, he was looked at as like the complete opposite of what Vince and the establishment wanted. In AEW, sure, he had a tumultuous run, but like we can also agree that like all the negative influence doesn't directly come from Punk himself. It was also seen as mismanagement with AEW establishment. I disagree with that. I would say that is a very hot take. 4 out of 5 Vince's do-rags, but I think more of Punk's personality, just his ring work and just like the legend and aura about him means more than public perception. Scott Steiner was the problem in his matches against Triple H. Triple H bumped around like a boss for him. Steiner just fell to pieces. I will agree, Steiner did fall to pieces. He definitely fell to pieces. Also, couldn't it be the kind of like style those matches were booked in? If Triple H had a heavy hand in booking at that time, which is what's to be believed and what's said, how could he not be a problem in that? You think Scott Steiner is the only person Triple H had bad matches with at the time? Look how the WrestleMania 19 Booker T versus Triple H match was booked. Does that mean that because the match was and the booking was and just the storytelling around that was that Booker T fell to pieces and it was all his fault? No, it could be two things could be true at once. Scott Steiner could have been at the time, it could have fell to pieces. Also, Triple H helped book that storyline incorrectly. I think Steiner not being able to perform is probably the worst of the two, but I'll give that 2.5 Vince's do-rags out of 5. I don't see that Steiner being the main problem in that entire thing. I think we got to also look at Triple H. The shows were a lot more entertaining when John Cena was the main guy. All right, I got a little bias on this one, right? On one end, that's a part of my childhood. I'll say a little more towards like early to late teenage years of John Cena being the main guy, and I love him, but also I grew up in the Attitude Era. I found friends through the Attitude Era. I went to school and raved about wrestling with friends during the Attitude Era. I waited after school for my friends to talk about the Attitude Era. And even the era after that, the Ruthless Aggression Era. John Cena wasn't really the main guy during the entire Ruthless Aggression Era. He was the latter part of it, but still, Rock, Austin, Shawn Michaels, not Triple H. Those are some of the most exciting times. I think that John Cena is one of the better parts of the history of WWE. He's top 3 in the history of WWE, but like, how can you compare that to Austin making a return every single week and getting the pop he got? You know how exhilarating that was, seeing Austin get a pop every week, seeing the emergence of The Rock. Also, I'm gonna give myself a 5 Vince's do-rags out of 5 Vince's do-rags because I can't believe I just said Shawn Michaels' run was better than John Cena's run. I apologize for that. For me to say that is crazy. John Cena probably has the second best run underneath Stone Cold Steve Austin. And yes, I'm taking Hogan out the conversation. Brother! This one makes me feel guilty and wrong. Cena did more harm than good to pro wrestling.
Ain't no way, boy.
Shut the fuck up. What are we talking about? Like, what are we talking about? This Vince McMahon who's doing all this creepy shit. This Hulk Hogan who's snitching and ruining unions. Like, what are we talking about here? There's the Chris Benoit tragedy, which is one of the most harmful things to ever happen. John Cena being a little bit of a bully and being a little selfish is not the worst thing.
Stop the cap.
Every superstar was selfish. Bret didn't want to turn the title over. Shawn Michaels didn't want to turn the title over. Austin didn't want to do jobs for Brock on Monday Night Raw. Rock doesn't want to do jobs to smaller talent. Like, what are we talking about? Like, everyone has that, but like, there's way worse things in the history of sports entertainment or just wrestling in general that do way more harm than John Cena. For hot takes, you're getting 5 out of 5 Vince's do-rags. Get out of here. I sound like a Cena Glazer, by the way. That's crazy. People insist Roman Reigns became one of the best ever once his gimmick became, I beat everybody nonstop for 5 years. It's something that can only be explained through Stockholm Syndrome or mass hypnosis. Yeah, Roman Reigns did become one of the best ever when his character became, I beat everybody nonstop for 5 years. When the f have we seen that in our lifetime? He's my tribal chief. Just for that, I'm giving that 1 tribal chief out of 5.
Acknowledge me.
I thought Becky Lynch as the man was horrible. She was probably the most forced badass character I've ever seen. Remember when she came out on Raw wearing the Deal With It sunglasses? Ugh. Becky, I know this wasn't in kayfabe, but I once saw you struggle to use a can opener for 30 minutes. Come on. You're gonna tell me you've never struggled with a can opener? There's so many different variations of can opener. There's the old classic can opener. There's the dumbass electronic can opener. There's the can opener where you gotta put a little thing and it's only one piece and you gotta somehow get it to stay on. You gotta screw it. That does not mean you're weak. At least that doesn't mean I'm weak. Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of the Becky Lynch man gimmick. Do I think it's her best gimmick? Yeah, but I'm not a fan of it. I guess that speaks to I'm not really a fan of Becky Lynch as much. I mean, she's respected. She can go in the ring, but like her characters have never stood out to me. I think it's more of them thing of like, if you see a little too much of it, it's It's bad. It's like the Cena thing. Cena was cool at first. A little too much Super Cena. We're not gonna like him that much. It's the same thing with Becky. It was cool at first. It was cool to see Nia Jax give it a bloody nose, but like, how long can you see a character that's kind of forced badass? That is true. I don't necessarily think she's horrible. I just think that it's a taste thing. People love the gimmick, so I'll give that 3.5 Vince's do-rags out of 5. I thought the cinematic matches at WrestleMania COVID were absolutely awful. First of all, I was gonna dispute with you what the actual WrestleMania was, but I forgot which number it was. So we'll allow WrestleMania COVID. That might be sensitive to some people, but I gotta allow it because I don't know the name of it. Second, I totally agree with you. Oh, I hate cinematic matches. I hate them. I hated the Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt match. I hate cinematic matches. I didn't like even that Hardy's TNA stuff. I did not like. I don't like cinematic matches. I like my to be in the ring. I like to where I can see my wrestlers call out their spots and it looks bad. I like old fashioned hillbilly redneck wrestling. Get that cinematic. I miss when wrestling was in like 8-bit. I miss when I could barely see what was going on TV. Sometimes I even miss when my cable didn't work right and I had to get the antenna in a certain angle and bang on it and I seen a bunch of squiggly lines. I love that old dirty kind of feeling of wrestling. I like wrestling like I like my hip hop, dirty, nasty, and grimy. So I will agree with you. As far as hot takes, that's not a hot take. I think it sucks. 0 Vince's do-rags out of 5. Well, that's the end of my hot takes. I'm looking to do more of these. If you guys have any, you could leave those in the comments. Like, comment, share, subscribe. If you find that what I said was absolute bull, let me know. If you agree with me, let me know. Just don't call me stupid. I'm sensitive. But this is Do-Rags and Arm Drags. You could call me DNA. And remember, I gave Vince the idea for the do-rag, but I didn't say he could use it.